I never thought a quiet neighborhood could teach me what real fear feels like. People say Canada is safe, polite, calm, boring even. But the truth is, danger only needs one determined person to show up at the wrong moment. I was 16 back then, living in the south end of Riverton, a mid-sized Ontario suburb that looked peaceful from the outside. Maple-lined streets, biking trails, families grilling outside on summer evenings. My friends always joked that our town was too quiet to ever be on the news. But they didn't live in my house. I grew up with a single mom who worked double shifts as a nurse, leaving early mornings and coming home late. My older brother had moved out right after graduating high school, and even though we weren't close, his absence created this weird, hollow quiet in the house. I filled it by going on evening walks, something soothing about the air cooling down after a long summer day. I started doing it when I was 14. It was my way of feeling free, feeling like my world was bigger than school, chores, and the silence of an empty house. But by the summer I turned 16, those walks became something else, almost like therapy. I had just come out of a rough school year, anxiety attacks, a friendship breakup, and that constant weight of feeling like everyone had figured their life out except me. Evening walks were the only time I didn't feel trapped inside my head. The night it happened wasn't special. No weird signs, no bad gut feeling, nothing dramatic. If anything, it was one of the nicest July evenings that year. Warm, golden light, the kind that makes everything look softer. I tied my hair into a messy bun, slipped into my sandals and checked the clock, 7:42 p.m. Plenty of time before sunset. Before leaving, I shouted toward the hallway, "Mom, I'm going on a walk." No response. She was on her night shift. I already knew. I typed her a quick message anyway. Me. Going for a walk. Be back soon. Mom. Okay, sweetheart. Stay on the main road, please. I smiled at the screen. Yes, ma'am, I muttered, locking the door behind me. The sidewalk along Briarstone Road was my usual route. Cars passed constantly, people jogging with headphones, dog walkers pausing at the trash bins, and the plaza at the intersection always had someone coming or going. Safe, familiar, predictable. I walked with my usual slow, steady pace, letting the wind brush against my face. Music played low in one earbud. It was peaceful, until a horn honked behind me. Not a quick tap, more like a short, sharp, hey kind of honk. I didn't turn. People honk all the time in our area. At slow drivers, at a car backing out wrong, even at friends they recognize. Still, something about it made my shoulders tense a little. I kept walking. Another honk followed. Short, close. I glanced back slightly, not turning my head, just enough to see a dark gray sedan slowing down near the entrance to the plaza. I shrugged it off. Cars stopped there all the time. When I approached the crossing, I looked both ways, stepped off the curb, and crossed into the sidewalk that curved past the plaza's driveway. But something felt off. I sensed movement behind me, that subtle pressure you feel when someone is watching. I turned my head fully this time. The same gray sedan. The man in the driver's seat had the window rolled down. He was leaning slightly toward his open door, just staring at me. Not blinking. Not pretending to look elsewhere. Just studying me like he was memorizing every detail. He wasn't tall, maybe 5'9", but bigger than me. Stocky. Wearing dark rectangular sunglasses even though the sun was already low. His hair was short, dark, neatly styled like he had just left a barbershop. His t-shirt was bright yellow with Brazil 2014 written across the front. Not unusual but noticeable. He pulled his car halfway into the plaza entrance and stopped it sideways, blocking the entire sidewalk. That was when I understood the honking was meant for me. My stomach tightened. He opened his door. "Hey!" he called out. I instinctively took one step back. He smiled like he was greeting an old friend. "Thought you were somebody else. Sorry about that." "Okay," I muttered. My voice was barely audible. He stepped closer. You look just like this girl I know. Works at this shop I go to. I shook my head. That's not me. He nodded slowly, as if pretending to accept it, but his eyes stayed fixed on me. Yeah, my mistake. You're really pretty though. My heart thudded harder. Thanks, I whispered, more out of fear than politeness. He took another step toward me, closing the gap like he had every right. What's your name? He asked. I can't tell you that. He chuckled. Why not? I just want to know who I'm talking to. I swallowed. My mom doesn't like me talking to strangers. Oh, come on, he said, dragging out the words. That's what all parents say. I was panicking inside, but I didn't want to show it. I should go, I said quietly. Wait, he said sharply. I froze. He tilted his head, studying my face. How old are you? I'm a minor. That should have been enough. It should have made him step back, apologize, something. But instead his smile widened, slow and unsettling. Really? Nah, you look older. Way older. I stayed silent. What are you, like 20? 21? He squinted behind his sunglasses. Yeah. I'm usually good at guessing. I shook my head again. I'm 16. He laughed under his breath. 16? No way. You're lying, sweetheart. The word sweetheart sent a cold shock up my spine. No, I'm not lying. He leaned one elbow on the open door of his car. I'm 32. I forced a tight smile. Okay, cool. He extended his hand like he expected me to shake it. Name's Roland. I didn't move. And you? He asked. I can't tell you my name, I repeated. He tilted his head again. Why is it a secret? I just don't share it. He laughed. You're funny, you know that? I didn't respond. You from around here? He asked. I hesitated. I'm Syrian. His eyebrows lifted. Oh, that's why you're so beautiful. I felt my chest tighten. He kept going. You Arabic girls? Man, you're just something else. I took a step back. He took a step forward. You got a boyfriend? He asked. No. You want one? He smirked. Someone older? Someone who knows how to treat you? My throat dried. I'm not interested, I said. His smile disappeared for a second, replaced by something colder. His jaw flexed slightly like he didn't like hearing the word no. But then he smiled again, pretending everything was normal. Hey, give me your number. No. Come on. We can talk. Let me get to know you. I said no. He held up both hands. Relax. It's just a number. I don't give out my number. He sighed dramatically. Fine. Do you have Instagram? No. Snapchat? No. WhatsApp? No. Nothing? He asked, almost annoyed. No. He exhaled sharply. Damn, you're tough. I didn't answer. He glanced back at his car. Let me just move this real quick. Hold on. Don't leave. But I was already backing away. I should go, I said. He frowned. Why? I have to be home. Come on, he said again, softer this time, like he was trying a different tactic. I'm not a bad guy. I didn't answer. He got back into his car and started reversing slightly. But I knew he wasn't leaving. He was adjusting just enough to come after me. And he did. I turned quickly and walked fast, sandals slapping against the pavement. The sun was lower now, shadows stretching across the road. I heard an engine. I glanced behind me. The gray sedan rolled slowly behind me, matching my walking speed. Roland leaned his arm out the window and waved at me, smiling wide. Too wide. Just stop, I thought. Just stop looking at me. But he didn't. He kept creeping forward like a hunter pretending not to hunt. I cut across the sidewalk toward the next street, Willowbrook Crescent, hoping he would drive straight instead. He didn't. He turned with me. My pulse jumped painfully. I sped up, tearing off my sandals so I could run barefoot. I looked behind again. He had turned into the gas station beside the sidewalk. His car stopped near pump 3. He got out. Then he started walking, on foot, following my direction. I felt my legs freeze. My breath hitched. My vision blurred for half a second. Run. The instinct hit me like a physical shove. I ran. My sandals dangled from my fingers, slapping my leg as I sprinted. I saw 2 women walking their dog ahead. Relief shot through me. "Excuse me," I cried out. "Someone's following me." They glanced at me, confused, maybe thinking I was overreacting, maybe not understanding the urgency. "He's right there." I turned to point. He was gone. No figure, no sunglasses, no yellow shirt, no sound of footsteps. It was like he vanished in the 2 seconds I wasn't looking. The women stared awkwardly, then looked away like they didn't want to get involved. I didn't bother explaining. I bolted down my street. My lungs burned. My hands shook. My heartbeat echoed in my ears like a drum. I fumbled with my key before pushing the front door open and slamming it shut behind me. The living room was dark, silent, too quiet. I locked the door, checked it twice, 3 times. Then I slid down the wall, breathing hard, body trembling, sandals still in my hand. I stared through the peephole. Nothing. No car, no man, no sign he had ever been there. But I knew. He had followed me. And if that sidewalk had been empty, no cars, no plaza, no gas station, I knew something far worse could have happened. My evening walks ended that night. For good. I didn't tell my mom right away. I was scared she would blame me or ground me indefinitely or worse, not believe me. But 2 nights after it happened, she found me sitting awake at 3 a.m. on the couch staring at the door. She sat beside me quietly. "Honey, what happened?" I broke. Every word spilled out. The honking, the staring, the questions, the car following me, the gas station, the running. All of it. She pulled me close, held my shaking hands and whispered, "Sweetheart, you should have told me. I'm so sorry you went through that alone." We filed a police report the next morning. They took notes, descriptions, the car color, the shirt. They said they'd keep an eye out. But they never found him. Some nights I still see his smile in my memories, that unsettling, too wide grin. Sometimes a car honks when I'm walking out of school and my chest tightens instantly. I know he's probably out there somewhere, bothering some other girl at some other plaza, honking at someone else who just looks like a girl he knows. But I also know this. If I hadn't been near a main road, if I hadn't run, if the sun had set a little earlier, I might not be here telling this story. Canada is safe, until it isn't. And danger doesn't always hide in the dark. Sometimes it pulls up in a gray sedan with the window rolled down on a warm July evening. I never thought a summer job could change the way I looked at people forever. I was 19 when I left my tiny hometown of Lakeshore Bend, Saskatchewan. Back then, the world felt bigger than I could handle, but smaller than my dreams. I had grown up around flat fields, quiet nights, and neighbors who waved at you from across the street even if they didn't know your name. Nothing bad ever happened, or at least that's what everyone said. But I was restless. I wanted something different, something louder. So when my mother's cousin, Aunt Helen, offered me a place to stay in Riverton City, Manitoba, I jumped. She lived in a 2-bedroom apartment above a laundromat, the kind with cracked tiles in the hallway and a buzzing neon sign that never quite turned off. The plan was simple. Work, save money, and maybe figure out what the hell I wanted to do with my life. My summer job ended up being on the top floor of an old office tower on Briar Avenue, the kind of building that looked respectable from a distance but felt tired up close. Paint chipped along the stair railings, the elevators groaned like someone had kicked them awake, and the windows rattled whenever a city bus passed by. Still, I liked it. It made me feel grown up. I worked in a small claims processing office. Nothing fancy, mostly typing and sorting paperwork. Our floor shared space with a little cafe called Maple and Steam, which meant every worker in the building had to walk past our reception area to get a muffin or coffee. Our receptionist, Jeanette, was in her late 20s, always chewing gum and always gossiping about someone. One day she tossed me the keys to the desk and said, "Be a doll and watch the phones while I grab lunch downstairs. Shouldn't take long." I nodded, slid into the receptionist chair, and pretended to look confident. The first few minutes were nothing special. A couple of people wandered up for coffee. A few grabbed sandwiches. I scrolled through a battered appointment book just to look busy. Then I noticed him. A man I had never seen before walking toward the desk, moving with the kind of confidence that made people step out of the way just a little. He looked Middle Eastern, maybe mid-40s, with close-cut dark hair and a neatly trimmed beard. His suit was tailored, expensive-looking, not the kind of thing people wore in our building. He paused in front of the desk and smiled at me. "Good afternoon," he said warmly. His voice was low, smooth, controlled. "You're not usually here, are you?" "No," I said, trying not to sound awkward. "Just covering the desk for a few minutes." "You're doing a wonderful job," he replied, leaning in slightly. "My name is Naveed Karim. I run a company a few floors down." I smiled politely the way Jeanette always did. He studied me for a moment. Not creepy, not lingering. At least not yet. Just observant. "You have a very striking look," he said. "Have you ever thought about modeling?" I laughed. Out of nerves, really? No. Not seriously." "You should," he said immediately. "In fact, my company is working on a project that might be perfect for someone like you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. Thick, glossy, professional. It read, "Karim International Exhibitions Director, N. Karim." The address matched our building. "Take this," he said. "Think about it. If you're interested, I'd love to talk with you over lunch sometime." Before I could answer, he smiled again, that same calm, self-assured smile, and walked away. I watched him until he disappeared into the elevator. When Jeanette got back, I told her everything. She popped her gum and raised an eyebrow. "Girl? Modeling? You lucky. He cute?" "I guess," I said. He seemed normal. "Normal men don't just offer modeling gigs," she snorted. "But hey, could be legit. Just don't go alone anywhere stupid." That night I told Aunt Helen and my mom over the phone. They both said the same thing. Look into the business first, but it might be a great opportunity. So the next morning, before my shift started, I called the Better Business Bureau. And shockingly, his company was registered, real, established, no complaints. It gave me just enough confidence to keep the business card in my pocket instead of the trash. The next day, around noon, I was covering the desk again when he appeared. "Did you give any thought to my offer?" he asked. "Maybe," I said cautiously. He smiled. "Would you meet me for lunch tomorrow? The cafe here is too noisy. How about the Royal Elm Hotel across the street? Their restaurant is quiet and we can talk properly." I hesitated. "The restaurant," he emphasized, as if reading my hesitation. "Open, public, bright." I nodded. "Okay. Wonderful." He looked genuinely pleased. "Noon tomorrow. And don't worry, it's just lunch." Still, I told my coworkers. They joked about calling the cops if I wasn't back in an hour. Except one woman, Linda, who didn't laugh. "Be careful," she warned, lowering her voice. "Men who move fast usually want something fast." The next day, I arrived at the hotel early. The lobby was classy, all marble floors and soft jazz music, the kind of place that smelled like expensive perfume. I scanned the room until I finally spotted him at the check-in desk. Checking into a room. My stomach dropped. He hadn't mentioned anything about renting a room. He'd said lunch. He turned when he saw me. "There you are," he said with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I booked us a private space to talk. Much easier than shouting over people." "I thought we were meeting in the restaurant," I said quietly. "The restaurant is loud today," he answered smoothly. Trust me, this will be more comfortable. I stared at him, at the room key in his hand, at the skeptical look the check-in clerk gave me. Something in my chest tightened, but he looked calm, normal, professional, and I desperately didn't want to feel like the naive girl from a tiny hometown who didn't understand how business meetings worked in a city. After a quiet back and forth, I found myself walking with him to the elevator. And that's when I noticed it. He didn't have a briefcase. The one he claimed held all his papers, contracts, photos. So where was it? He saw me looking around. It's already in the room. He lied effortlessly. Except he had just checked in. I swallowed hard. I should have run. I should have turned around. I should have done 100 smart things. But I was 19, and afraid of looking stupid, and a little too trusting. The room was smaller than I expected. Clean, neat, nothing ominous. But as soon as the door closed behind us, my stomach twisted again. Please, have a seat, he said, gesturing to a chair by the window. I sat. Across the room he casually laid down on the bed, not even sitting, laid down, hands behind his head, like we were hanging out after school. He watched me too closely. You look nervous, he said softly. I'm fine, I lied. You don't need to be, he continued. This could change your life. Tell me, what's your dream car? My what? Your dream car, he repeated, still relaxed on the bed. If you modeled with us, you could afford it in months, not years. I tried to force a laugh. That sounds unrealistic. Not at all, he said. Our clients pay top dollar. All you do is wear outfits in separate partition rooms while international buyers place bids. On the clothing. Sometimes on the models themselves. That last part made every hair on my arm stand up. He kept talking, his voice smooth but his eyes hungry. Of course, we need to make sure you have the right figure. Why don't you step into the bathroom, take off your clothes, wrap yourself in a towel, and come out so I can evaluate your proportions? I froze. No, I said immediately. He lifted one eyebrow. This is standard procedure. I'm not getting undressed. He sighed, not angry but patient, like I was being childish. Sweetheart, you want a model, don't you? Then let me see what I'm working with. Go on, just a towel. Nothing more. I should have left. But something about his tone, the mix of confidence and pressure, made my brain fog. I stepped into the bathroom. The moment the door shut, my hands shook. I could hear him outside, talking in another language, laughing. My heart started pounding. I wrapped the towel around myself, staring at the mirror, whispering, "What the hell are you doing?" I opened the door. He was on the phone, lounging casually, eyes locking onto me instantly. "Turn around," he said with a smirk. Slowly. That's when something snapped in me. I retreated, slammed the bathroom door, threw on my clothes with shaking hands. When I opened the door again, he was off the bed, standing casually like he had all the time in the world. I should go, I said, breathless. He didn't move to stop me. He just watched me run out the door, watched me sprint down the hall, watched me stab the elevator button until it opened. He didn't chase me, not physically, but the way he stared, that stayed with me. I told my coworkers everything. They were shocked, horrified. Linda looked like she might cry. "Call the police," she demanded. But I didn't, because all I felt was embarrassed, stupid, ashamed. How could I admit I walked into a hotel room with a man I barely knew? I just wanted it to go away. A few days later, when I arrived at work, the entire front of the building was surrounded by police cars, officers in suits, plainclothes detectives, a swarm of commotion. One coworker rushed up to me. "They arrested someone downstairs," she whispered. Some guy was being investigated for solicitation and coercion. Apparently he's been targeting young women. My heart slammed into my ribs. I knew who it was. I knew without asking, but the police never contacted me. Not once. And I didn't step forward. Maybe they didn't know I existed. Maybe someone else reported him. Maybe he gave them a fake list of victims and left me off it. I convinced myself it was over, until 2 weeks later. It was around 6:30 p.m., early August. The sun was low, throwing long shadows across the parking alley behind my building. I had stayed late, finishing paperwork, and the alley was quiet. Too quiet. As I rounded the corner to where my car was parked, I saw him, sitting in a dark sedan, engine off, windows down, watching me, that same calm smile on his face. Not angry, not panicked, just amused. Like he knew something I didn't. My body went cold. He didn't get out of the car, didn't call out to me, didn't move. He just smiled. Slow, wide, knowing. I fumbled my keys, threw myself into my car, locked the doors, and peeled out so fast I nearly hit a dumpster. My hands didn't stop shaking for hours. A week later, I packed my bags. I moved back home with my mother, and I never went back to Riverton City again. For years, I had nightmares. I still think about that last smile, the one that felt like a warning, like a promise, like something unfinished. Because the scariest part isn't what he did. It's what he planned to do, and how close I came to never walking out of that hotel room at all. I grew up believing I wasn't easily rattled. Maybe that was me being naive, or maybe growing up in northern Alberta trains you to deal with things other people would call creepy. Long, empty highways, neighbors spaced out like they're allergic to each other, coyotes screaming at night. It's not exactly Disneyland. By the time I hit 20, I'd moved back to my hometown of Ridgeway Crossing, a small city between Edmonton and St. Albert. I'd been living with my dad again for about a year after my college program fell through. It wasn't glamorous, but rent-free living sure beats drowning in debt while working minimum wage. Dad works long hours at a lumber yard. His girlfriend, Lana, is one of those people who can walk into any room and become everyone's adopted big sister. They'd been together for 2 years now, and despite my early fears, she hadn't turned into an evil stepmother from a kid's movie. Most nights, the house felt normal, safe, predictable. But the week before everything happened, Ridgeway Crossing started showing up in the news. Armed robberies, 2 in gas stations, 1 in a small pharmacy, 1 at a pawn shop on Claremont Road. Everyone told each other not to panic, but you could feel this unease creeping around town like fog. Even my dad started telling me not to walk alone after dark. So that night, the one that changed everything, it started like any other Friday. Dad and Lana were heading out to a co-worker's birthday party in Brook Hollow, a community a few minutes away. I had the house to myself, which honestly sounded like paradise. No small talk, no awkward family stuff. Just me, a blanket, some snacks, and the kind of horror movies that give normal people nightmares. "I'll text you when we're heading back," Dad said, while pulling on his jacket. "You better," I said. "Last time you said that you didn't text me for 6 hours. He rolled his eyes. "I was busy." I shrugged. Yeah. Go socialize, you brave man." Lana laughed. "We won't be late. Don't open the door to anyone, seriously." I nodded, mostly because that's what she wanted, but I wasn't scared. Not yet. They left around 8. The house got instantly too quiet. I turned on the TV, pulled up an old horror classic I'd seen a dozen times, and let the familiar intro music fill the room. For the first time in a while, I felt relaxed. Until I didn't. It must have been 20 minutes into the movie when I heard a knock at the door. Not loud, not normal. More like someone tapping their knuckles slow and soft, like they didn't really want to be noticed. I paused, unsure if I imagined it. Then it came again. I didn't pause the movie. I wasn't planning to answer, but I figured I'd at least look through the door. When I opened it, standing on my front step was a man I didn't recognize. Tall, lean, maybe mid-30s. Brown hair tucked under a toque. A jacket that looked dark, but I couldn't even tell if it was navy or black because the porch light flickered like it was trying to give up. He smiled, but it was the kind of smile that never reached the eyes. "Evening," he said. "Sorry to bother you. I'm with North Fence Secure, a locally funded home security provider. We're doing a neighborhood check-in tonight." I blinked, caught completely off guard. Okay. "Are your parents home?" he asked. "My dad," I corrected automatically. "But no, he's out." His eyes flicked briefly over my shoulder, scanning the hallway behind me. "Gotcha. Well, we've just set up systems in a few houses on this street. The McClearys, the Rowans, the Vicks. You might have seen the trucks earlier." I hadn't, but whatever. He lifted a laminated sheet like a magician revealing a trick. "We offer a fully integrated setup. Smart locks, indoor and outdoor cams, window sensors, works with your phone, Alexa, all that good stuff." He said it all very fast, very smoothly, like he'd rehearsed it. I forced a smile. "Cool, but we're not looking for anything right now." "No problem." He nodded. "Just curious, do you guys ever leave town for long trips? Vacations? Family events?" I hesitated. Something about the question felt off. "Not really," I finally said. "Someone's almost always home." He shifted on his feet. "You sure you don't want to take a pamphlet? I can swing by tomorrow to talk to the homeowner." "My dad won't be home until late," I said, "and he won't want a system." He lifted his brow. "We're heading to a different city tomorrow, so tonight's kind of our only window." "Sorry," I said. He held my gaze for a second too long. Then he exhaled. "All right, thanks for your time." He turned and walked down the steps. Something nagged at me. Something so small I brushed it off. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't have a name tag. He didn't give me a card. He didn't look back once. I went back to my movie, telling myself I was being dramatic. I even laughed at myself. Classic horror paranoia. After the movie ended, I grabbed my phone and opened Facebook. Some local buy-sell posts, memes, random neighborhood stuff. But then a shared post caught my attention. A woman from Hickory Bend, another community near mine, wrote about an odd experience she'd had about 2 hours earlier. A man claiming to be from North Fence Secure knocked softly, asked if her husband was home. Showed her laminated pictures of devices, never gave his name, never gave a card. She went inside to grab pen and paper for his number, and when she came back, he was gone. Gone fast. A neighbor saw a guy sprinting into the alley behind her place. My stomach dropped. As I read further, more comments flooded in. "Same thing happened to me tonight." He asked weird questions about travel schedules. One of them went around the side of my house without permission. 2 of them stood across the street just watching my door. And then the kicker. Someone contacted North Fence Secure. And the company said, "We don't send people door to door. Ever." My chest tightened. The room felt colder. Every detail of the man at my door replayed in my head with terrifying clarity. His quiet knock, his questions, his glance inside my hallway, his disappointment when he learned someone lived here full time. He wasn't selling anything. He was checking something, maybe checking opportunities, vulnerabilities, layouts, schedules. I suddenly hated how quiet the house was. I hated the way the shadows pooled in the corners. I hated that, for a moment, I had told a stranger I was home alone. Around 11:20 p.m., someone outside walked slowly past the house. Not on the sidewalk, right in front of the window, close enough that I heard the crunch of snow. I turned the TV down and listened. The footsteps stopped, paused, then slowly continued. By the time Dad and Lana got home past midnight, I hadn't moved from the couch. My phone sat tight in my hand like a lifeline. When Dad walked in, I finally breathed. He glanced at me. "You good?" I nodded, but my voice was thin. "Yeah, just tired." He didn't push. He never does. But that night, I slept with my bedroom door locked and the hallway light on. something I hadn't done since I was a kid. Over the next few days, the posts kept coming. More sightings, more soft knocks, more fake reps. Security cam footage showed a woman with a clipboard creeping into someone's backyard staring at their windows. Another video caught two men testing side doors. The police made a statement about ongoing investigation and public vigilance. But everyone knew what they weren't saying. Someone was planning something. Maybe multiple someones. Maybe they already had a target list. Maybe my house was on it. And I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't answered the door. If the knock had been too soft to hear. If he thought the house was empty. I still wonder why he left so quickly. Why he didn't press harder. Why he didn't linger. And the only thing I can think is, maybe he heard my TV. Maybe he thought I wasn't alone. Maybe he thought someone was in the next room. Maybe that single detail, one tiny thing, saved me. Ever since that night, the smallest sound in my house feels amplified. Every evening walk down my street feels different. Every knock feels suspicious. There are real monsters in the world. They don't hide under beds. They ring doorbells. They smile. They ask questions. And sometimes, they walk away because they think you're not alone. I didn't grow up in a rough neighborhood. If anything, my childhood was painfully average. But life changes fast when you move out, and in my case, everything shifted the year I turned 18. That was the year I started commuting from my grandmother's house while I tried to settle into university life. She lived in a quiet pocket of the city, far from the downtown chaos, and staying with her felt like a safe landing after leaving high school behind. Back then, I was still figuring out who I even was. I was the type who always tried to keep other people comfortable. The type who apologized for things that weren't my fault. The type who'd look away instead of speaking up. My ex-boyfriend, his name was Rio, used to tease me for it. Not in a mean way, but he'd say it like he wanted me to hear myself. "You're too soft on people," he'd tell me, flicking my forehead. And I'd laugh. Because he wasn't wrong. We weren't perfect, but at the time he was familiar. He understood the city in ways I didn't because he'd grown up in it. Grew up in the parts people didn't talk about unless something violent made the news. He used to say, "This city ain't cute at night. People get brave in the dark." I never really believed him. I thought he exaggerated things to sound tough. But that was before the night in the park. It was October, cold enough that the air felt sharp when you breathed in. I still remember the bite of it on my cheeks as we stood outside my grandmother's door ordering the Uber. We'd spent the night with my family, and everything felt so normal. We left a little past 2 in the morning because Rio had work early the next day. I remember yawning in the back seat of the Uber as the driver took us deeper into the city, away from the quiet comfort of my grandma's neighborhood and toward the outskirts where Rio lived. His area wasn't the worst, but it wasn't the kind of place you wandered around after midnight either. The streetlights buzzed and flickered more often than they stayed on. And even when the weather was still, the place had this heaviness in the air like something invisible was watching from the shadows. The moment we got out of the Uber and Rio patted his pockets, I knew something was wrong. "Ah, shit," he muttered, smacking his palm against his thigh. No. "What?" I asked, already dreading the answer. "My keys. Babe. I think you left them at my grandma's," I finished for him. He groaned. "I swear I grabbed them." We stood there for a moment, both of us exhausted, both annoyed at the idea of ordering another Uber right away. The street was dead silent. Only one street lamp glowed at the end of the block, and even that one flickered like it was struggling to stay alive. "There's that park down the lane," I said, pointing. "Let's just sit there for a bit. I'm too tired to deal with another ride." Rio hesitated. "It's late." "Well, we'll just go for 5 minutes," I insisted. "Just to wake up a bit." He sighed but nodded. "Fine. 5 minutes." I wish I never suggested it. The park was small, squeezed between two clusters of dead-end streets. Just one way in and out from the main road. There was a roundabout at the entrance, a rundown bench to the left, and a pair of old metal teeter-totters sitting crooked on the mulch. The place looked abandoned. Even the swings were missing. When we sat down on the teeter-totters, the metal groaned under our weight. I tucked my hands into my sleeves, shivering, and Rio leaned back on his palms, gazing at the flickering streetlight. "You good?" he asked. "Just cold," I murmured. He smirked. "You're always cold." A moment passed, a moment too peaceful, and then everything changed. From the corner of my eye, I saw headlights turning into the complex. A black car, slow, deliberate, the kind of slow that makes your instincts flare. "Don't look at it," Rio muttered under his breath the moment he saw it too. The car rolled down the left dead-end street, toward us. It didn't stop, didn't speed up. Just a slow crawl to the end, then a smooth U-turn, then back up the lane. It moved to the other dead end, did another U-turn there, and then came back again. I couldn't see inside. Not even a silhouette. The windows were tinted so dark, they looked like polished stone. My heart sank into my stomach. This wasn't normal. Rio leaned in without turning his head. "Get up," he whispered. "Start walking. Don't run. Don't look at them." The tone of his voice, sharp, low, urgent, made my chest tighten. I stood up and followed him toward the roundabout. Behind us, the car slowed. It stopped. I felt cold sweat forming at the back of my neck. "Just keep going," Rio said through clenched teeth. The windows rolled down. That sound, smooth, mechanical, intentional, still haunts me. Inside the car were voices. Male, young, maybe 3, maybe more. One leaned out the window just enough. Yo, where you two from?" My blood turned to ice. Rio didn't respond. He didn't look back. I kept my eyes on his shoulder blades as he whispered, "Don't talk. Don't give them anything. Keep walking." But the voices behind us shifted tones, curiosity giving way to aggression. "Yo, we're talking to you." Rio grabbed my wrist. "Walk faster." I didn't dare glance back until I heard something that made my stomach drop, the sharp click of car doors opening. They were getting out. "Rio," I breathed, voice cracking. "Run," he said. We took off. I've never run so fast in my life. The gravel under my shoes felt like it was swallowing me whole. My heart slammed against my ribs, each beat louder than the last. I could hear steps behind us, fast, heavy, closing in. "Go, don't stop," Rio shouted. I pushed harder, lungs burning. That's when I saw it, a red laser cutting across the ground near my feet. At first I thought it was a flashlight, but the way it moved, quick, controlled, made my insides twist. "Don't look back," Rio barked. But I did. And for a split second, I saw the outline of one of them holding something. I couldn't make out the shape, too dark, too fast. But the laser, that laser. We bolted out of the complex, sprinted across the main road without looking for cars, and dove into the first backyard we could find. We crouched behind a shed, trying to muffle our gasps. Rio, I tried, but the words were broken. "Shh, don't talk, don't move." My hands were shaking so violently I could barely unlock my phone. Twice I dropped it into the grass. When I finally dialed 911, my voice was barely recognizable. The operator kept asking questions. "Where are you? What direction did they go? Are you hurt?" But everything blurred together. I remember Rio rubbing my back, whispering, "You're okay. You're okay. Just breathe." Even though his hands were trembling too. By the time the cops arrived, the street was empty. The car was gone. The men were gone. No trace, no witnesses, no cameras on that side of the complex. The officers gave us a ride back to my grandmother's house. I didn't speak the whole time. I just stared out the window, replaying everything in my head. The slow crawl of the car, the question meant to bait us, the footsteps, that laser skimming the ground. I didn't sleep that night, and I didn't feel safe for months. People think scary things only happen in the places you expect. Dark alleys, abandoned buildings, sketchy bars. But the truth is that danger doesn't wait for the right setting. It doesn't need permission, it just needs opportunity. We were in the wrong place at the wrong time. And those guys were looking for someone to hurt. I don't know what they wanted. I don't know if the laser belonged to a gun. I don't know why we were targeted. Maybe we just looked young, easy, vulnerable. But I do know this. If we had stayed in that park even 1 minute longer, I don't think I'd be alive to tell this story. Trust your gut. Listen to that voice in your head when something feels off. Because sometimes danger doesn't announce itself. Sometimes it rolls in silent, with tinted windows and slow wheels, waiting for you to ignore the feeling in your stomach telling you to leave. And if you don't, you might not get another chance. I always thought my first year at university would feel like freedom, like stepping out of one life and quietly walking into another. That's how everyone talks about it, right? New people, new experiences, new beginnings. But nobody warns you about the darker corners of that freedom, the places where the wrong person notices you before you notice them. I had just turned 18 2 weeks before orientation. I still lived with my parents in Riverton, a small city outside Edmonton, the kind where you still bump into your elementary school teachers in the grocery store, and where the buses rattled like they were held together by prayer and duct tape. My university, North Prairie University, was a 20-minute ride away depending on traffic and whether the driver felt like actually stopping for red lights that day. Because my schedule had a weird 4-hour break between classes, I usually took the bus home after my morning lecture and then back in the afternoon. It saved money, and honestly I didn't love being on campus more than necessary. Too many people, too much noise. That's how everything started. Not with something dramatic, not with a scream, just a bus ride. My mom worked as a nurse, mostly night shifts, and my dad did long-haul trucking. They weren't home a lot. I grew up being the quiet kid, the one who stayed busy reading crime novels or watching old court documentaries instead of going to parties. I'd never had a boyfriend, never even kissed anyone except in my imagination where things were, and still are, safer. So commuting alone didn't scare me at first. I actually liked it. The cold air, the predictable routine, the way you could stare out the window and pretend the world wasn't complicated, until someone makes it complicated for you. The first time I noticed him wasn't even special. Just one of those days when the bus is late and everyone crowds toward the curb like they're auditioning for a movie on public transit misery. He got on 2 stops after me. Tall, thin, messy dark blonde hair tucked under a gray beanie. He had this scruffy beard that looked like he shaved once a month and an oversized denim jacket that hung too big on him, like it used to belong to someone else. I wouldn't have looked twice. Except he kept looking at me. Not obvious staring. More like the way someone glances at a restaurant window when passing by. Quick, casual, repeated. At the time I brushed it off. People look. Whatever. His name, though I didn't know it then, was Rylan. About a month into the term, I was waiting at my stop to head back for my Indigenous Studies class when I heard quick footsteps behind me. The kind that sound like someone moved closer without thinking. A voice said, "Hey, you're in Professor Blackfeather's seminar, right?" I turned and saw him up close for the first time. Rylan. "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile. "You're in that course too?" He nodded. "Thought so. I recognize you from the back row." That was my first mistake, smiling back. In Canada, we smile reflexively. It's practically a law. The bus came, and he sat right beside me. Not across, not near, beside, even though the bus was half empty. He talked a lot, fast, about how he was doing a combined major, how he liked the class but hated the reading load, how he missed a quiz and was hoping the prof wouldn't tank his grade. Then he asked, "So, what are you studying?" "Psychology," I said. "Oh, the mind reader major?" He smirked. "Guess I should be careful around you." I laughed politely, even though something about that comment made my stomach knot. When we reached campus, he walked next to me the whole way to the building, continuing small talk. I didn't think too deeply about it. He felt slightly odd, yes, but lots of people did. I had no idea this was the beginning of months of fear. Over the next week, he was always at my bus stop. Even when I knew he didn't have class at that time. He'd sit beside me every time. He'd lean in to show me videos on his phone, meme reels, TikToks, Instagram comedy clips. "Look," he'd say, nudging my shoulder. "This one's hilarious." Sometimes I'd laugh to be polite, even though the whole time I could feel something tightening in my chest. I didn't know him. Why was he acting like we were friends? Other days he barely talked, answering my questions with short, clipped sentences. "So how was your morning class?" "Fine." "Busy day?" "Sure." It felt like flipping a switch. I never knew which version of him I was going to get, the overly friendly one or the cold one. But the worst part was, he looked at me like he was trying to memorize my reactions, my hands, my eyes, my expressions, like I was a puzzle he wanted to solve. He asked for my Snapchat one day before the bus arrived. "Just easier for the assignment stuff," he said casually. I didn't want to, but I also didn't know how to say no without making things awkward for the next 8 weeks of class, so I gave it. That night around 1 a.m. he sent me a selfie. The caption, "What are you doing?" I replied with a picture of my TV. Nothing personal. He snapped back instantly. "Come pick me up?" I blinked. Was he drunk? We weren't friends. Why would he even? I replied, "I can't. I don't have the car tonight." He messaged, "Seriously? Just say you don't want to. Don't lie." My heart sank. The switch again. Friendly to hostile. I stopped replying. There were a few hours of silence. Then at 4 a.m. another message. Whatever. I muted notifications after that. The following afternoon he was waiting for me at the bus stop, with a huge smile like nothing happened. I wish I could say I stopped sitting near him, but every time I tried to take another seat he'd follow. "Why are you sitting over there?" he'd ask with a pretend laugh. Then he'd slide in right next to me, thigh pressed to mine. He'd touch my arm lightly when talking or rest his elbow against me like we were familiar. Once, when the bus turned a corner, he put his hand on my knee to steady himself. I froze. He didn't move it. I finally scooted away, pretending I dropped my phone. He just smiled. "Relax," he said softly. "I'm not gonna bite." Something in the way he said that made my skin crawl. One day, right as I stepped off the bus near my house, I heard steps behind me. I turned, and there he was. "Oh, you live around here too?" he asked casually. No, he didn't live anywhere close. I knew because I'd seen his stop every time, 2 kilometers away. Yeah, I said, picking up the pace. He followed anyway. "So, can I come inside? We could watch something, you're always watching shows." I felt my throat tighten. "No, my parents are strict. No friends over unless they're home." He paused, then nodded slowly. "Okay. Fine." He walked away, like he suddenly lost interest, but the way he looked back at me stayed in my head for days. He began snapping me late at night again. "Come over. We should hang out, you're cute. Send something. You're so tiny, lol, bet I could pick you up." I didn't reply. One night he wrote, "If you don't want to talk, just say it instead of acting better than me." I finally replied, "Please stop messaging me." He wrote back instantly, "Wow, fake as hell. You act like you're some saint. You know what? Forget it. You're just another boring campus girl." Then, I blocked him. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped my phone on the bed. But blocking someone online doesn't block them in real life. He still got on the bus at the same time as me. Still sat beside me. Still touched me. More now. Almost irritated. Once he whispered, "You ignoring people again?" I didn't answer. He placed a hand on my thigh, harder than usual, and leaned in close enough that I could smell cigarettes on his breath. You shouldn't be rude. I pulled away so fast I hit my shoulder on the metal bar. A lady across from us noticed. She frowned. You okay, sweetheart? She asked. I nodded quickly, my eyes burning. I didn't want to make a scene. I wanted to disappear. When the bus reached my stop, I practically ran off. I didn't see him after finals. I assumed he moved or dropped out or got busy. Summer came and went. Second year began. On the first day back, I checked my Canvas messages for assignment info and froze. Rylan M. Saw you on campus today. Add me back on Snap LMAO. Can't find your username. My entire body went cold. He had gone back to our old class roster and found me. I ignored it. 2 days later, an Instagram follow request appeared with his name. Blocked instantly. But he wasn't done. I saw him 3 times that month. Once in the library behind a bookshelf, pretending to look at magazines. Once outside my psych building, staring as I walked out. And once, worst of all, on the 201 bus again. He sat beside me silently that time. No words, just staring out the window, bouncing his leg nervously like he was holding something in. I finally stopped taking the bus entirely. My boyfriend at the time started driving me to campus. I didn't tell him everything. I didn't want to worry him, but he knew enough to keep me safe. Eventually, the sightings faded. Winter term came. My boyfriend got a full-time job, so I had to start busing again. Even writing that now makes my hands shake. I got on the bus at 1:15 p.m. The sky was gray, heavy with that disgusting half-snow, half-slush mix Edmonton sometimes spits out in late November. I walked to my usual seat, middle row, left side. I was scrolling on my phone when I felt it. Eyes. Not glancing, not looking away when caught. A stare, bold, direct, almost relieved. I turned slowly. He was in the very back seat, hood up, head tilted slightly like he was studying me. A small smile pulled at the corner of his mouth. My heart stopped. Not figuratively, not dramatically. It stopped. Because the second I looked at him, I knew. He had been waiting. Maybe all semester, maybe every day. Maybe he had seen me 10 times I never noticed. My throat tightened. I grabbed my phone and pretended to text someone. I kept my eyes glued to the screen. The bus stopped 3 times. He didn't move. When my stop came, I stood up. So did he. I walked down the steps. The cold air slapped my face. I heard footsteps behind me. Slow. Measured. Matching mine. I walked faster. The footsteps kept pace. I reached the corner where I normally turn toward home. My breath fogged the air. The houses around me looked smaller, somehow distant. I turned sharply and crossed the street. Not toward home. Just somewhere else. The footsteps stopped. I glanced back. He was standing on the sidewalk watching me with his hands in his pockets. His expression wasn't angry. It wasn't friendly. It was calculating. Like he was waiting for the right move. He lifted one hand in a small wave, barely a gesture. Then he turned around and walked the other way, just like that. But I knew, that wasn't the end of him. Guys like him don't just stop. They pause. They wait. They watch. And the worst part? You don't always see them watching. I don't know if he followed me later. I don't know if he knows where I live now. I don't know if he's still checking buses. All I know is, today reminded me that fear doesn't disappear just because you block it online. Some people don't need your username to access your life. They just need proximity and opportunity. I'm writing this tonight because I want other students, especially those who commute alone, to know this. Trust your instincts. Don't dismiss unease. Creeps don't always look like villains. Sometimes they look like tired guys in denim jackets sitting too close on a bus. I hope he's finally gone. I hope he's finished with his degree. I hope he finds someone else to obsess over, or better yet, no one at all. But I've learned to be careful. Because once someone decides they want access to you, it's rarely over when you think it is. I don't talk about that summer unless someone pulls it out of me gently. like removing a splinter that's been buried under the skin for years. Even now, at 22, living in a much bigger place, Toronto, noisy and bright and always moving, I still feel like that quiet 12-year-old girl from a nowhere town named Redwood Vale 2 hours north of here. Back then, life felt simple on the surface, but underneath, I was a kid who didn't know where she belonged. My name isn't important, but what happened is, when I was 12, I was the type of kid who lived more in her head than in the real world. I didn't have siblings. I didn't talk much. I wasn't bullied, but I wasn't really seen either. I was one of those kids people described as sweet, polite, or shy. The kind teachers forgot to call on because they barely noticed me raising my hand. My parents weren't bad people. They were just tired people. My dad worked the early shift at a lumber mill. My mom worked nights cleaning offices. Their schedules rarely overlapped with mine, so summer days were mostly empty space, which is why I always looked forward to the few friends I did have. One of them, Leanne, was 2 years younger than me. Loud, funny, always doing handstands in the grass and talking like she was auditioning for a TV show. She was also popular, the kind of kid who attracted people like fireflies. I was lucky if she remembered our plans, and when she canceled, she always did it with a breezy, "Sorry, girl, something came up." I pretended it didn't bother me. It always did. That day, June 26th, if I remember right, was the first day of summer break. I had built it up in my head like some big opening ceremony to the season. Me and Leanne were supposed to meet at Brookside Park, which was a 45-minute walk from my house. She said she wanted to show me a stray kitten she found behind the baseball diamond. Instead, she sent a text 10 minutes before. "Sorry, my cousin wants to hang out, you go ahead. Tomorrow, maybe." I read it 3 times. My chest tightened the same way it always did when she canceled, but I told myself I'd go to the park anyway. I had nothing better to do, and my parents were sleeping after their shifts. So I put on my worn sneakers, filled a plastic bottle with water, and headed out. The sun was brutal even at noon, and the walk felt longer than usual. When I reached the park, the swings were empty, the slide was blazing hot, and everything felt too bright. After wandering around for a while, I sat on the edge of the sandbox and tried to tell myself it wasn't a big deal. That's when I heard it. A distant jingle. A melody I knew by heart because every kid in town did. The ice cream truck. Only, we didn't get many ice cream trucks in Redwood Vale. There was just one guy who came through town every couple of weeks, an older man named Mr. Atwell, who had been selling soft serve since before my parents were even born. But the truck I heard that day wasn't his. The song was different and newer, almost upbeat, like something from a kid's show. When it turned onto the park's gravel road, dust lifting behind it, I saw it wasn't the familiar faded blue truck everyone knew. This one was bright white with cartoon drawings of cones, sundaes, and popsicles. The paint looked newer, cleaner. The man driving it smiled when he spotted me. He wasn't old, maybe late 20s, early 30s. Brownish hair, sunburned cheeks, a baseball cap with a logo too faded to read. He pulled the truck to a stop and leaned out of the window. "Hot day, huh?" he said, voice friendly, warm. "You look like you've been out here a while." "Yeah," I mumbled, standing up and brushing sand off my shorts. "You want something cold? First treat of the summer's on me." I blinked. "No money needed?" He shook his head. "Just being a nice guy. I remember what summer felt like when I was your age." Back then, that sentence felt harmless. Now it feels like a warning I ignored. I walked up to the window shyly. Can I get a vanilla milkshake?" "Good choice," he said with a grin. "Name?" I hesitated, but eventually told him. Kids don't think about danger the same way adults do. He handed me the milkshake a moment later, and I swear I felt like the luckiest kid alive. Ice cream trucks were rare in my town. A free milkshake? That was like winning a mini lottery. Then he said something that made my stomach flutter. Not with fear, but with that uncomfortable awareness shy kids get when attention is suddenly on them. "You here alone? No friends with you today?" I looked down at my shoes. Yeah, my friend canceled. That's rough. People can be flaky, he said. Well, hey, if you want, you can hop inside for a minute. I can show you how the music works. Most kids think it's cool. I should have said no, but at 12, cool meant everything. I nodded. He opened the side door. Come on up carefully, don't slip. I stepped inside. The truck was cramped but colorful. Stickers on drawers, a small radio that played the catchy jingle, a worn driver's seat that looked like it had seen hundreds of road trips. He showed me buttons, how the music changed, even let me press the horn once. You want to try the steering wheel? He asked. I nodded again. He let me sit in the driver's seat. I laughed, honestly laughed. For the first time that whole day. When I finally hopped back out, he waved at me like we were old friends. Come by any time, okay? I didn't realize then that I had already given him everything he wanted access. His name, he said, was Rylan. Not Ryan. Rylan. He spelled every time. He said he wasn't from Redwood Vale. He was passing through for summer roots. He made it sound like he worked for a franchise. I didn't know if that was true, but he came to the park almost every day. And when no other kids were around, he'd wave me in and let me sit inside. Press buttons. Hand me little treats, he said. We're extras. He was funny. He told jokes in the same tone older brothers used in movies. He called me kiddo sometimes, then apologized and said, sorry, that probably sounds lame. For a lonely 12-year-old, he felt like what I imagined an older friend would be. He asked about my favorite music, my parents, school, friends. He listened so well that I poured out more than I should have. He knew exactly where I lived, what my daily routine looked like, how often I was alone, and he used that. But 12-year-olds don't see the puzzle pieces until someone else puts them together. The first time he touched me in a way that wasn't normal, it didn't look wrong. We were sitting in the truck. I was in the passenger seat, legs dangling. He reached over, grabbed a napkin from the floor, and brushed sand off my knee. His hand lingered for a second longer than it should have. You really should be careful sitting in that sandbox, he said lightly. I laughed nervously. Yeah. After that, the touches became a pattern. A hand on my shoulder that slid too low. A tight side hug that made me freeze. A hand resting on my thigh as he talked about nothing. But every time, he followed it with a disarming laugh or a gentle, relax, I'm not weird. Or worse, we're friends, aren't we? Friends trust each other. It wasn't until he started asking questions that something inside me twisted uncomfortably. Hey, you're growing up fast. You must be wearing different things now, huh? Like, girl stuff? I stared at him blankly. What do you mean? You know, like colors, styles, underwear and all that. Kids your age care about that. I shrugged. I guess. You can tell me, he said. I'm not judging. I didn't answer. He didn't mind. He kept going. You start wearing a bra yet? They make those training ones that are pretty cute, right? I remember feeling my lungs stop. I don't know. He grinned like I had told a joke. Relax, kiddo. I'm just asking. People talk about this stuff. I believed him. God help me, I believed him. Because he was the only one talking to me like I mattered. Toward the end of July, he got bolder. Hey, he said one day, tone casual. If you're curious about, bodies and stuff, I could show you mine. It's normal to learn. I froze. What? He laughed softly. Don't freak out. You're acting like I said something bad. I'm just saying. Everyone's curious. If you want to see, it's no big deal. I shook my head. No. I'm okay. He shrugged like it didn't matter. But I saw something change in his eyes. A flicker of irritation. After that, he became pushier. Lift your shirt just a bit just the hem. I want to see how tall you're getting. Come on, don't be a baby. You don't trust me after all this time. He said these things with a smile. A sweet, manipulative smile I later learned to fear. And then one day, I stopped resisting. Not because I wanted to, but because I felt guilty for making him upset. That's how kids think when they've been groomed properly. You think you owe them something. What happened over the next 2 months? I won't spell out every detail. But he took pieces of me, my innocence, my safety, my understanding of what friendship meant, and he did it slowly, carefully, with a predator's patience, until the very last day. It was late August. School was about to start again. By then I had started pulling away. Being near him made my gut twist and my throat tighten. I didn't laugh as much. I didn't trust the milkshakes. I didn't like the way he locked the truck door when I walked in. That day, he noticed immediately. "You're quiet," he said. "I'm just tired. You haven't been yourself lately." "I'm fine." He stared at me too long. "Show me." I swallowed. "Show you what?" "That you trust me." "I do." "No," he snapped, sudden and sharp. "You're pulling away. I can feel it." I tried to move toward the door. "I should go home." He grabbed my arm, harder than ever before. "You're not leaving." Fear shot through my chest. "Rylan, let go." "No." His voice cracked like something inside him broke. Then everything blurred. His hands, his weight, my screams, the smell of the truck, the sticky floor, my heartbeat slamming in my ears. He didn't listen. He didn't stop. When he finally loosened his grip, he turned away from me, muttering something to himself. Something hateful, something low and angry. And in that moment, I saw a knife on the metal counter. A small cutting knife he used for fruit toppings. My hands moved before my brain did. I grabbed it. When he turned back around, he actually laughed. "You think I won't take that from you? Put it down, kid." I didn't. I drove it straight into him. His scream filled the entire truck. Pain, shock, betrayal, like I was the monster. He fell to his knees, clutching himself, sobbing, shaking his head over and over. "Why would you? Why?" I didn't stay to hear anything else. I ran. Out the truck. Across the field. Through the trees. Until my lungs failed. I collapsed against a tree, shaking, sweating, crying until everything went black. I woke up at sunset. Head pounding. Hands trembling. I walked home like a ghost. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell my friends. No police. No hospital. No report. For years, I wondered whether he lived, whether he hunted someone else, whether I should have said something when I still had the chance. I've carried that guilt like a stone in my chest. Even now, when an ice cream truck drives past my apartment in Toronto, I freeze. My vision goes blurry. My throat tightens. I can't breathe. I can't think. It all comes rushing back. I was diagnosed with PTSD at 19. Therapy helps. Medication helps. Talking about it helps. But nothing erases the memory of that summer. And nothing ever will. All I can do now is what I'm doing here. Telling the truth aloud so it stops rotting inside me. I hope someday I forgive myself for surviving the only way I could. For now, this is all I can say. I never used to think much about the place where I grew up. Back then, it was just home, quiet streets, maple trees leaning over sidewalks, and neighbors who nodded at you from their front yards without really knowing you. I was 12, old enough to bike around the neighborhood alone, but young enough to still believe nothing truly awful could ever happen to me. But that summer, late May of 1999, that belief changed forever. Even now, decades later, I still wake up some nights convinced I'm lying on cold asphalt again. My wife says I twitch like I'm trying to stand up. I wish I could say it's just a nightmare. But it isn't. It's a memory. And it's the one thing in my life I cannot explain even to myself. I lived in a mid-sized Canadian town called Red Hollow, Manitoba. Not a real tourist spot. Just one of those places you drive through on your way to somewhere else. The kind of place where corner stores double as post offices and the same 3 pickup trucks circle the same streets every day. My parents worked long hours. Dad was a mechanic at a shop off Route 20, and Mom worked cash at a pharmacy that smelled like dust and cough syrup. I was the middle kid, my older sister, Arlena, was already 17 and constantly rolling her eyes at me. My younger brother, Toby, copied everything I did. Arlena had 2 kids already, which most adults whispered about but never said to her face. She lived 5 blocks away on Merrick Avenue, and I babysat her kids more than I probably should have at 12 years old. But I never complained. Babysitting meant I could ride my bike, my prized neon yellow mountain bike that Dad bought second-hand but rebuilt from scratch. Treat her like she's alive, he'd say, slapping the handlebars like they were a pet. I did. I loved that bike more than I loved most people. That Saturday morning, I remember everything being normal. Totally normal. Birds were loud. Air smelled like cut grass. Mom burned toast again. Dad was trying to fix a radio that didn't need fixing. Toby was yelling at his Nintendo like it owed him money. Arlena called around 10 a.m. "Hey, you busy?" she asked, sounding half out of breath. "I mean, kinda," I teased. "I'll give you $10. I'll be there in 15. $10 was $10. I threw on my favorite outfit, a neon orange tank top and matching shorts. Loud colors. Yeah, I loved looking like a highlighter. It felt like freedom. I grabbed my bike, kicked off from the driveway, and pedaled toward Merrick Avenue. Nothing strange, nothing eerie, no weird gut feelings. If anything, I felt good. I wish I could remember leaving her place later. But that part, the part right before everything happened, is missing from my memory, like a ripped-out page. All I remember is this: babysitting, afternoon sun, Arlena returning with grocery bags, me saying, "All right, I'm heading out," her waving and saying, "Text or call when you get home, okay?" And I left. Or, I think I left. My last known timestamp, 2:08 p.m. After that, nothing. Not 1 second of it. I woke up to the sound of cars. Loud, blasting past me. A horn blaring. Wind rushing over me like a slap. I opened my eyes, and I was lying on the center line of Red Hollow's busiest road, Henderson Drive. My bike was on top of me like I had fallen with it, but not crashed. Just placed there. For a moment, I didn't move. I just stared up at the sky, bright and blue, in a kind of numb confusion. What the hell? A car swerved around me and honked again, and that's when I jolted awake fully. My arms, legs, and chest stung, not with pain, though. More like the idea of pain. I pushed the bike off me and stumbled to my feet, dragging it to the sidewalk. I looked down at my skin. Scratches everywhere. Thin, long, jagged lines like I'd slid across a rough floor for hours. But no blood. No dirt. No grit. Just rawness. My clothes. Perfect. Not ripped. Not dirty. Not even wrinkled. "Hello?" I called out. A couple across the street glanced my way but kept walking. A man mowing his lawn didn't even look up. It was like none of them saw me lying in the middle of the damn street. I checked my bike. Tires, fine. Rims, straight. Pedals. Not a scratch. "What the hell happened?" I whispered. My throat felt dry, like I had been screaming for hours. But I remembered nothing. Absolutely nothing. I got on the bike and pedaled home, the whole time feeling like I was in someone else's dream. The weirdest part? My body felt light. Too light. Like something inside me was missing. When my house came into view, I saw Mom standing on the lawn. At first, she didn't notice me. She was pacing, holding her phone tight against her chest. The moment she saw me biking toward her, she froze. Then she screamed, "Oh my God, oh my God." Dad came running out of the driveway, Toby behind him. Arlena's car screeched to a stop on the street. My brothers, Jaron and Lyle, who'd been out searching, pulled up seconds later. Everyone rushed toward me at once. "Where were you? We've been looking for you for hours. Do you know what time it is? Why didn't you answer your phone? Look at his skin, what is that?" I blinked. "Hours? I left at 2. Dad grabbed my shoulders gently. "Kiddo, it's 7 o'clock. My stomach dropped. 5 hours? Gone?" Mom touched my arm and recoiled. "What happened to you?" I looked at the rash again, really looked now under the shade of our porch. The scratches were everywhere, but still no dirt, no ripped fabric, no bruises. "Did somebody hurt you?" Mom whispered. No, I said instantly, because in my chest, I felt no fear of a person. Just nothingness, emptiness. But I didn't know what to tell them. Dad said, everyone, inside, now. They sat me on the couch like a broken toy. Mom knelt in front of me, holding rubbing alcohol. This might sting, okay? But earlier, the scrapes felt numb. Now, they felt wrong, like they weren't mine. She dabbed alcohol onto my arm. I didn't even flinch. She frowned. How are you not reacting? Dad crossed his arms. Start from the beginning. I don't know what happened, I said, voice cracking. I remember leaving Arlena's. Then, nothing. I woke up on Henderson. On the yellow line. You woke up in the middle of the road, Jaron repeated. Yeah. No one saw you? Lyle asked. I don't know. People were walking, cars passing. I hesitated, but they didn't react, like I wasn't even there. That made Mom cover her mouth. Dad looked at the window as if checking for someone listening. Arlena hugged her arms around herself. I walked that road twice. I didn't see you. Not once. Dad exhaled. We're taking you to the hospital. The ER staff looked me over with cold professionalism, their faces shifting from concern to confusion. A nurse with square glasses asked, You're telling me you lost 5 hours? I don't remember anything. A doctor asked, Any dizziness? Nausea? Strange smells? Metallic tastes? No. Another nurse tapped my arm where the scratches were. Does this hurt? No. A little? No. I don't feel anything. Any tingling? Not really. Kid, how did you get scraped this bad without damaging your clothes? The nurse murmured. I heard her say it under her breath, like she was thinking out loud. The police showed up 2 hours later. Officer Ryland Shaw, tall with a mustache too big for his face, flipped open a notebook. What's your name? Liam. Age? 12. Walk me through your day. I did. He wrote slowly, then asked, Do you remember anyone following you? Any unfamiliar cars? Voices? Strange noises? No. Any bright lights? That one made me pause. Why would there be bright lights? He shrugged, just covering all bases. Another officer, a woman named Nora Pike, asked, Did you feel like you were asleep? Or unconscious? I don't think so. I rubbed my forehead. It felt sore, like something was trying to push a memory up through the surface but couldn't break it. Nora leaned closer. Liam, do you remember being picked up? Held down? Anything like that? No, nothing like that, I swear. She exchanged a look with Rylan, one of those looks adults give each other when they don't want a kid to see their fear. Hours later, results came back. No drugs. No head injury. No dehydration. No bruises. No fractures. Just scratches that didn't make sense. The doctor returned with a strange calmness. You can go home, he said. But, keep an eye on how you feel. If anything changes even slightly, come back. Dad nodded. Mom asked, Is he okay? The doctor hesitated. Not a good hesitation. Physically? Yes. But mentally? Memory gaps of 5 hours are unusual, especially with no signs of trauma. Are you saying he blocked something out? Mom whispered. Possibly, he said softly. I didn't feel blocked. I felt emptied. I didn't sleep that night. I kept touching my arms, my legs, my chest, expecting the numbness to fade. But the scratches didn't hurt, even when I pressed hard. The next morning, Mom asked, You hungry? No. I wasn't hungry at all. Not for days. Dad tried to comfort me the only way he knew how, by offering to fix my bike. I don't want to ride it right now, I muttered. He didn't push the issue. Arlena visited with her kids, but she kept staring at me like she was trying to memorize my face. You sure you don't remember anything? She asked again. No. You're scaring me, Lee. I'm scaring me too. For weeks, everything around me felt quieter, blurry, like the world was still moving, but I wasn't fully here. School felt wrong. Food tasted wrong. I didn't dream anymore, not for months. Just black emptiness every night. I stopped riding my bike entirely. I locked it in the shed. Sometimes I'd hear the faint metallic click of something shifting inside it, almost like someone else had used it. But every time Dad checked, everything was fine. Life moved on. But I didn't. 3 months later, in August, something happened that I've never told my family. I woke up one morning before dawn around 4:30 a.m. to a faint whisper. Not words, just a tone. A humming. Low. Vibrating. Like the sound a TV makes when it's on mute. I sat up. The sound grew louder. It was coming from my window. I walked to it cautiously and looked outside. Nothing. Just the empty street. But the noise persisted. I pressed my hand to the glass. It was cold on a warm morning. Then, the humming stopped. Instantly. And in the silence that followed, I heard something else instead. A voice. Not outside. Inside my head. A whisper. You were chosen. I stumbled backward so fast I hit my dresser. Hello? I whispered harshly. Who's there? My heart slammed in my chest. No answer. Just a strange warmth spreading across my skin where the old scratches had been. They weren't visible anymore. They had faded weeks ago. But now they tingled. Not pain. Recognition. After a long minute, the feeling faded. I curled into my bed, trembling. I didn't sleep again. I never biked again. Never walked alone outside after dark. Never visited Red Hollow again after we moved the next year. My parents chalked it up as trauma. Therapists said memory repression. Doctors shrugged. Police closed the case. But me? I knew something happened. Something that wasn't human. Something that wasn't from here. And every so often, maybe once or twice a year, I hear that humming again. Quiet. Faint. Like a reminder. A warning? I don't know. But I do know one thing. When the humming happens, the hair on my arms stands up exactly the same way it did on that road in 1999. And the part that terrifies me the most, each time the humming returns, I feel a little less like I fully came back that day. Like whoever or whatever had me for those 5 hours didn't give all of me back. The last time it happened was 3 years ago. I was in bed, my wife asleep beside me, and the room took on that familiar electricity like the air thickened around me. Then came the humming, stronger than ever. My breath caught in my throat. No, not again, I whispered. But it wasn't a whisper this time. It was a call. A pull. I stood up without deciding to. My legs moved like something else commanded them. I walked to the window. Outside, the empty street glowed faintly, not from street lamps, but from something else. Something bright. Something silent. Something waiting. My skin vibrated with numbness. The same numbness from that day. The same weightlessness. The same emptiness in my chest. Like a piece of me wanted to leave. I forced myself to whisper, "Stop." And for the first time ever, it did. The humming cut off. The light vanished. The numbness drained from my arms. And I collapsed. My wife found me on the floor minutes later, shaking. She thought it was a panic attack. Maybe it was. Or maybe I finally resisted. Maybe whatever took me that day realized I wasn't 12 anymore. I wasn't helpless. Or maybe it left because it already got what it wanted. I don't know. I don't think I'll ever know. I'm 38 now. I still can't touch bicycles. I still can't return to Red Hollow. I still can't fill in the blank between 2:08 p.m. and 7 p.m. And I still have no explanation. Except one. One that sounds insane. One that nobody ever believes. One that's bothered me for nearly 3 decades. I don't think I blacked out. I don't think I fell. I don't think I was kidnapped. I think I was taken. And whatever took me, it let me go. But not before leaving something behind. Something I feel every time the humming comes. Something that feels less human. Something watching. Something waiting. I pray it never returns. But if it does, I hope it's just coming for the rest of me. Because I'm tired of wondering where those 5 hours went. And whether they ever really ended. I never thought I'd look back at the spring of 2001 and feel my chest tighten the way it still does today. Back then, I was 19, broke, and living on the outskirts of Rainford Township, a quiet Canadian town 40 minutes east of Winnipeg. It wasn't one of those postcard places, just a long strip of cracked highway, patches of farmland, and a cold wind that never seemed to stop cutting through your jacket. At that time, I lived with my mom and younger brother. Mom worked double shifts at a care home. Dad had passed when I was 14, and ever since then, I'd been trying to fill the man of the house role, not very successfully. Money was tight. Real tight. So when I heard there was farm work available on the Hargrove property, a big neglected lot way outside town, I didn't even hesitate. I'd heard rumors that the two brothers living there were a little off, that the place looked like a graveyard for rusted tractors, that late-night biker parties used to happen there back in the 90 seconds. But when you're broke enough, you ignore stories. That's how I met Neil and Corbin Hargrove. Two brothers, two opposites, two men I should have never trusted. I still remember the crunch of gravel under my boots as I walked up the long, uneven driveway. The place looked abandoned, faded barn walls, carcasses of old machinery, a half-collapsed shed, and a silo leaning slightly like it had lost the will to stand straight. Then the door of the trailer opened. Corbin stepped out, big guy, beard down to his neck, wearing a camo jacket stained with who knows what. He looked at me like someone looks at a stray dog that wandered onto their porch. "Yeah?" he said, scratching his jaw. "What do you need?" I came about the job. The post at the diner's board. "Oh," he muttered, nodding slowly. "Neil forgot to take it down." "Well, hell, you're here now. Name?" "Eli Warren." "Well, Eli, you ever worked with pigs before?" "No, sir." He snorted. "Don't call me sir. I ain't nobody's damn officer." Then something shifted in his eyes like a dark film rolled over them and he grinned. "You'll learn." He led me inside the trailer. The moment I stepped in, a sour odor hit me, a mix of alcohol, sweat, and something stale. But the thing that made my stomach tighten was the wall full of Polaroids, 100 tiny squares pinned up, each showing a different woman. I paused. Corbin noticed. "Oh, don't mind that," he said with a laugh that felt wrong. "My brother collects junk. Photos, souvenirs. He's harmless." Harmless. That word still twists inside me. Neil wasn't like his brother. He was thin, quiet, almost gentle-looking. But he had a weird way of watching, like he never blinked fully, like he studied every person in the room. "New help?" he asked. "Yep," Corbin replied. "Kids broke, desperate. Our kind of people." Neil smirked. "Well, welcome to the farm." I shook his hand, cold, damp, like he never touched sunlight. He gave me the rundown. Feed the pigs. Hose the pens. Load bags of feed. Help with visitors. I still didn't understand what that meant. And stay out of the old slaughterhouse. He emphasized that last part. Don't go in there. Ever. "Why?" I asked. Corbin grinned like he wanted to say something. Neil shot him a warning look. "It's unsafe," Neil said. "Flooring's rotten. Could fall through." But the look he gave, Corbin told me it wasn't about the floor. At first, everything seemed normal, well, normal for a farm this rundown. Pigs squealed day and night. The mud smelled like death. The cold wind made my bones ache. But the work paid cash daily, which meant groceries on the table back home. And yet, little things bothered me. The way Corbin bragged about old parties with bikers before the government started sniffing around. The way Neil disappeared for long stretches at night. The way women came to the farm asking for help, food, a place to stay, and only sometimes left. One night, I asked Corbin, "Where'd that girl go? The one with the red jacket?" He shrugged. "People come and go, kid. You worry too much." Another time, I asked Neil, "Do those women work here?" He paused, then smiled thinly. "Life's different for everyone, Eli. Some people need opportunities. We give them that." I didn't know what he meant. Or maybe I just didn't want to. The first real sign that something was wrong happened on a cold early morning. I went to the main barn to grab shovels. But I heard something that didn't fit. A voice. Faint. Muffled. "Hello, please someone." My heart slammed. It wasn't coming from the barn. It was coming from the old slaughterhouse, the one I was warned not to enter. I stepped closer. My breath clouded in the cold air. Again. Please, just let me out. I froze. It wasn't imagination. It wasn't an animal. It was a woman. I turned around and ran straight into Neil. He stood inches from me, silent, expression blank but eyes, sharp, calculating. "Why are you near that building?" he asked softly. I heard someone. He placed a hand on my shoulder, squeezing hard enough to hurt. "You heard wrong. Sound carries weird out here. Wind plays tricks. You got chores to do." I nodded quickly and stepped back. But as I walked away, he called after me. "Don't wander again, Eli. Curiosity kills a man quicker than any animal does." His voice wasn't angry. It was calm. Too calm. It happened on a Friday. Corbin told me there'd be a gathering that night and I should stay home. But we needed money. So I asked if I could come anyway. He smirked. "Fine. But stay out of sight. And don't drink nothing you didn't see poured." When I reached the farm at sundown, I saw cars, beat-up trucks, motorcycles, strangers hanging around, drinking, laughing too loud. And women. A lot of women. Some looked high. Some looked scared. I felt sick. Inside the barn, music blasted. People danced, shoved, argued. A man offered me a drink. I refused. Then I saw Neil dragging someone toward the slaughterhouse. A woman. Her head hung forward, hair hiding her face. Her knees buckled like she couldn't walk straight. "No," I whispered. Something inside me snapped. "No, this ain't right." I followed them quietly. Neil unlocked the door. The woman murmured, "Please, I don't wanna." He shoved her inside. My chest tightened so painfully I felt dizzy. I had two choices. Walk away. Or do something. And for once in my life, I did something brave. Or stupid. Or both. When Neil walked back toward the barn, I waited until he disappeared inside. Then I bolted to the slaughterhouse door and slipped in. It was dark. Cold. Metallic smelling. "Hello," I whispered. A faint cry came from the corner. I switched on my lighter, and my blood ran cold. A woman sat chained to a beam. Bare feet, wrists bruised, tear-streaked face. "Oh God," I breathed. "I'm gonna get you out, I promise." They said. They said they'd let me leave if I... Her voice broke. Before I could respond, a new voice echoed behind me. "Well, hell," Corbin growled. "Ain't this just disappointing?" I spun around. He stood in the doorway, shotgun in hand. "You poking around in family business, boy?" My heart pounded so loud I could barely hear. "I'm taking her," I said, voice shaking. Neil appeared behind him. Silent as always. Expression empty. "You're not taking anyone," Neil said softly. "You don't understand how this works, Eli. You don't understand what these girls owe." "She doesn't owe you shit," I yelled. Corbin lifted his shotgun slightly. "Neil, should I just—" "No," Neil murmured. "He's useful. Loyal. Or he was." He stepped forward. "You could have been part of this, Eli. You could have had money, freedom, anything you wanted. Instead, you stick your nose where it doesn't belong." His voice had no anger. No heat. Just cold disappointment. Something inside me snapped. I charged at him, grabbing the nearest thing, a rusted metal hook hanging from a beam, and swung it wildly. It hit Corbin's hand. He screamed, dropping the shotgun. I didn't wait. I grabbed the woman's arm and pulled her to her feet. "Run!" I shouted. We sprinted into the dark field. Behind us, Corbin yelled, "I'm gonna kill you, boy. You hear me?" But the darkness swallowed us, and adrenaline kept our legs moving. We hid behind an abandoned tractor until the yelling faded. The woman, her name was Renee, was shaking violently. "They'll find us," she whispered. "They have guns. They have friends." "No," I said. "Not tonight." I carried her half the way until I reached the road. Then I flagged down a passing car. The older couple inside didn't ask many questions, maybe because they saw the terror on our faces. They drove us straight to the RCMP detachment. But the nightmare didn't end there. When we told the officers what happened, they looked at each other. Not shocked, not confused, but like they'd been expecting this. And then I realized something. People had complained about the Hargroves before. Women had gone missing near that farm. Stories had circulated for years. Nobody acted. Nobody pushed. Until now. Within 48 hours, the property was raided. What the police found there, I still can't talk about without my throat closing. Clothes, IDs, jewelry, and worse. I saw one officer walk out and vomit in the grass. Neil and Corbin were arrested. Charges stacked like bricks: kidnapping, trafficking, assault, murder. During the trial, their past came out. The biker parties, the missing women, the things they'd done in that slaughterhouse. People asked me how I survived them, how I worked there for weeks without knowing. I still don't have an answer. Maybe because monsters rarely look like monsters. Sometimes they just look like country folks with rough hands and old jackets. Renee survived. She got clean, moved provinces, started over. I testify at every parole hearing. Even now, even decades later, I don't know if justice ever fully exists for things like that. But I know this. I don't walk by deserted farms anymore. I don't ignore strange sounds. And I don't assume rural Canada is safe just because people like to pretend it is. There are dark places out here. Dark people. And I met 2 of them. I still wake up some nights hearing that faint voice from the slaughterhouse. Please. Someone. And I wonder how many others whispered the same thing, without anyone ever hearing them. I always thought the worst thing about living in northern British Columbia was the cold. But I was wrong. Cold is predictable. Cold doesn't stalk you. Cold doesn't watch you from the tree line with the patience of a hunter who knows the landscape better than you ever will. What happened to me on Ridgemont Highway in 2019 still feels like a splinter stuck deep under the skin, always there, always catching my thoughts, always making me wonder how close I came to vanishing like the others. Before everything went sideways, I used to believe bad things had a shape, something you could understand, explain, maybe even trace. But what lurks along Ridgemont Highway isn't shaped like anything you can name. It's not a single man or monster. It's the land itself. The roads. The silence. The places so worn down by forgotten lives that something rotten fills the empty spaces. But I guess I should start at the beginning. I grew up in Stonebury, a tiny northern town 2 hours east of the Pacific coast. Most folks don't know it exists unless their truck breaks down on the way to somewhere worth being. My mom always said the town felt like God left the lights on but forgot to come back. Back then, I worked as a night shift mechanic at a transportation depot. My name is Ivor Wren, and at 27, I felt like my life was a worn-out jacket, familiar but fraying at the edges. My dad had died in a logging accident when I was 14, and my mom spent most of her time caring for my younger sister, who struggled with a lifelong heart condition. Money was always tight. That's why I hitchhiked sometimes. Yeah, I know how it sounds. Why would a grown man hitchhike? Easy. When you don't have a vehicle, don't have steady cash, and live in a place where buses run like once a season, you stick out your thumb and hope the universe sends someone decent. Ridgemont Highway, the isolated stretch between Greywood and Harristown, wasn't just a road. It was the only artery connecting dozens of small communities. People used it every day without another option. Everyone in the region knew the stories, of course. The missing women, the unexplained disappearances, the search parties that came home empty-handed. But when you grow up around something horrible long enough, the horror starts to sound like background noise. You normalize it. You shouldn't, but you do. It was late October. The kind of night northern BC is known for: damp air, quiet towns, and miles of dark forest heavy with fog. I had traveled to Greywood to buy a spare carburetor from an old guy selling used parts out of his garage. The bus back home didn't run Sundays, and Uber in towns like ours is basically a myth. I checked my phone. No signal. The dampness had turned into a thin drizzle. I didn't have much choice. I started walking along Ridgemont Highway with my hood up and my backpack slung over one shoulder. Around 30 minutes later, headlights appeared behind me. Not too fast. Not too slow. Just rolling up the road like they were meant for me. I stuck out my thumb automatically. The truck slowed, then stopped. An old brown pickup, maybe late 80s, rust chewing through both doors. The passenger window rolled down with a mechanical whine. A man leaned over from the driver's seat. He looked around mid-40s. Thick beard. Hair tied loosely at the back. Cold blue eyes. Not the kind you forget. "You headed east?" he asked in a low, gravelly tone. "Stonebury," I answered. "Hop in. I'm going as far as Harristown." Something about his voice made the hairs on my arms rise. But sometimes your instincts get drowned out by tiredness and rain. I opened the door, tossed my backpack at my feet, and climbed in. The man nodded once and pulled onto the road. "Name's Rhett Halberg," he said. "I'm Ivor." We didn't speak more than that for the first 10 minutes. The only sound was the engine growling beneath the rain. Trees on either side passed like ghosts, tall and unmoving. Then he finally spoke. "You from around here?" "Stonebury, born and raised." He chuckled just once. A sound with no humor in it. "Stonebury. That place still holding on by a thread, huh?" I shrugged. "More like dental floss." He actually laughed at that. A real one. It made me relax stupidly. "Yeah," he said. "Towns like that don't die. They just hollow out." There was something about the way he said hollow that bothered me. We drove another 15 minutes when he asked, casually, "You ever lose someone on this highway?" I swallowed. "What do you mean?" "People disappear out here. Happens every year. Usually someone young, someone walking alone." "You sound like you keep track," I said, trying to make it sound like a joke. He didn't laugh. "I pay attention," he replied. "Most folks don't." Then he glanced at me with those pale eyes. "People need to pay attention. It ain't safe to be out here by yourself." My pulse ticked upward. Maybe it was the isolation. Maybe it was the way the forest looked like it leaned toward the highway. Maybe it was just the way he said it. But my gut told me something was off. I forced myself to stay calm. "Well, I appreciate the ride," I said. "Not planning on making this a habit." "Good," he muttered. "Never know who you're getting in a truck with." He said it almost amused. I shifted slightly in my seat. My fingers inched toward the door handle just in case. 10 more minutes passed. The rain thickened, splattering heavily against the windshield. He turned on the wipers. Then he spoke again quietly this time. "You ever hear about the Orlitten girl?" I stiffened. Everyone in the region had heard about her. A teenager who vanished 2 summers earlier walking home from her friend's place. They never found her. Not a scrap. "Yeah," I said slowly. He nodded, eyes fixed ahead. "Funny thing about that case. Folks think it was some drifter, someone not from around here." He paused. "That's what they always say." "Who do you think did it?" I asked, trying to stay neutral. "Oh, someone local," he replied. "Someone who knows the side roads, the logging cutouts, the ravines." He turned his head and looked at me, really looked. "Someone who knows exactly where the ground is soft enough to swallow a whole damn person." A bolt of ice went through me. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. He smirked. "Just talking. Highway talk. Helps pass the time." It didn't help. Not at all. About 5 minutes later, he slowed the truck. Not a full stop. Just a gradual easing off the gas. The forest ahead was thicker, darker. Fog crept across the asphalt like spilled milk. "You good?" I asked. "Road gets rough here," he murmured. But the road didn't look rough. It looked like every other patch of lonely asphalt we'd been on. That's when I noticed something else. The GPS unit on his dash was off. Completely off. No glow. No light. My stomach tightened. Then he said something that made my skin crawl. "You know, this road wasn't marked on maps until the early 2000s. I blinked. "What?" "Used to be a service trail. Old fir roots. Lot of history under these trees." He lowered his voice. "Dark history." I forced a laugh, trying to keep things light. "You're full of stories, eh?" He smiled. "Just what I've seen." That smile didn't reach his eyes. The rain thinned suddenly, like someone turned down a faucet. That's when a shape appeared in the fog. A deer. At first glance, but as we got closer, I realized it wasn't standing quite right. Its head was turned too far. Its legs were splayed stiff, like it wasn't alive. Its belly was open, hollowed out, ribs exposed like white fingers. "What the hell?" I whispered. Rhett didn't slow down. He didn't even blink. He just muttered, almost to himself. "Scavengers get bold out here." I stared at him. "That thing wasn't eaten by scavengers," I said. "It looked like something gutted it?" He interrupted. He shrugged. "Happens." My throat tightened. I didn't like the way he said happens. After the deer incident, the silence in the truck thickened. Then Rhett spoke again, softer than before. "You ever done something you can't take back, Ivor?" My heart thudded once, hard. "What do you mean?" I asked. He didn't look away from the road. "I mean something that feels like it rewired your whole damn soul. Something that made you a different kind of person after." I swallowed. "No." I lied. He finally turned toward me. And for the first time, I saw something in his eyes, something cold and deep and empty. "I have." My fingers slid toward my backpack. "Look," I said carefully. "I'm pretty close. You can drop me anywhere." He didn't respond. He pressed harder on the gas. The truck sped up. My pulse hammered as I reached quietly for the door handle. It didn't budge. Not even a click. I tried again, slower this time. Nothing. I turned my head and looked at the lock. Child lock. A grown man with no kids had his truck set to child lock. A spike of fear hit my chest. Rhett noticed. Of course he noticed. "You trying to get out?" he asked casually. "I just wanted some air," I said, forcing calm. He smiled at the windshield. "You'll have plenty of air where we're going." A fork in the road appeared ahead, one that led deep into unmarked woods. Rhett flicked on his turn signal. "Right. Into the forest. Not toward Harristown." My breath hitched. "That's not the way," I said, my voice cracking. "Shortcut," he replied. "There is no shortcut," I whispered. He grinned. "There is if you know where to look." I felt panic claw up my spine. My mom's expecting me," I said, grasping for anything. "She'll call the RCMP if I'm late." "Oh, they won't come out here," he murmured. "Not to this stretch." My chest tightened. "Why not?" He inhaled deeply. "Because they're scared of it." We turned off the highway. The forest swallowed us instantly. Branches scraped the truck like fingers dragging across metal. The road, or whatever it was narrow and uneven. Mud splattered the sides of the truck. Rhett exhaled. "You ever wonder why so many people disappear out here?" I didn't respond. I couldn't. He continued anyway. "You want the truth? They disappear because this land doesn't forget." My voice trembled. "I don't understand." "Oh, you do," he said. "You've felt it since you got in the truck." He tapped the steering wheel rhythmically, slow, deliberate. "This place chooses people, takes them, buries them. Sometimes it uses folks like me to help." My stomach dropped. "You're not making sense," I said. "Just take me to Harristown." He shook his head. "Nah, that's not what the night wants from you." I felt like vomiting. "What do you want from me?" I choked. He finally answered. "To see if you're the type the land keeps." I had only one option left. Death by truck or death by whatever waited deeper in that forest. As he slowed to turn down an even smaller trail, I lunged. I grabbed the steering wheel and jerked it hard left. The truck fishtailed violently. "What the?" Rhett shouted. The truck skidded across the mud, slammed into the side embankment, and crashed against a fallen tree. My head hit the dashboard. Stars exploded behind my eyes. Pain shot through my shoulder, but adrenaline drowned it out. Rhett groaned beside me. I didn't wait. I shoved my backpack aside and kicked the door with everything I had. The lock snapped. The door flew open. Cold air slapped me across the face as I bolted into the woods. Branches whipped my arms and face. Mud sucked at my boots. Every breath tasted like rust. Behind me, I heard him stumble out of the truck. "Ivor," he shouted, his voice echoing through the trees. "You ain't gonna get far." I didn't look back. I kept running. The forest was too quiet. Even the wind felt wrong, like it moved in circles instead of straight lines. Then I saw it. Light. Not a flashlight. Not headlights. A soft, pulsing light deeper between the trees. Like something breathing. I didn't want to move toward it. But I didn't have a choice. Rhett crashed through the brush behind me. "You don't want to go there," he roared. "That place ain't for you." I ran harder. I burst into a clearing so suddenly I almost fell forward. The light was coming from the ground. Not above. Not around. From beneath. A faint bluish glow seeped through the soil, illuminating twisted tree roots and moss-covered stones. The air felt thick, charged, humming like a power line. I froze. What is this?" I breathed. Something in the earth shimmered like movement, like shifting, but before I could make sense of it, Rhett stumbled into the clearing behind me, panting, bleeding from a cut on his temple. He saw the light and swore under his breath. "Damn it, kid," he gasped. "You shouldn't have come here." "Stay back," I said, hands shaking. He stopped, shoulders heaving. "This place ain't what you think," he said, voice trembling now not with anger, but fear. "You were gonna kill me?" I snapped. "No," he said. "Not me. I just bring people here. The land decides the rest." I stared at him, horrified. "You're insane." "Maybe," he muttered, "but you'll see." He took one slow step toward me, and the ground beneath the light shifted like something massive rolled beneath it. My heart seized. "What the hell is under there?" I whispered. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Because something started rising. Something big. Something wrong. The earth swelled upward like a bubble. Roots snapped. Soil cracked. A shape began to push toward the surface. Not human. Not animal. Something older. Something that didn't belong above ground. Rhett whispered, "It's awake." I stumbled back as the ground tore open. A thick, twisted form rose, a mass of interwoven roots, bones, soil, and sinew. A grotesque shape with no face but many openings, each exhaling cold air like a dying breath. It wasn't alive in any way I understood. It was the forest, the land, the history buried beneath centuries. And it was hungry. Rhett fell to his knees. "I brought him," he whispered. "Just like the others. Just like you wanted." He wasn't talking to me. He was talking to it. I turned to run. But the creature or whatever it was lunged toward Rhett, wrapping him in thick root-like tendrils. He didn't scream. He just exhaled, almost relieved. Like he'd been waiting years for this. I ran. I didn't look back. Not even when something wet hit the back of my neck. I didn't want to know. The forest felt different now. The trees seemed closer. The air colder. I ran until my lungs burned, pushing through branches, tripping over roots. My boots. Slipping in mud. Finally I saw it. The road. Ridgemont Highway stretched empty and dark, a lifeline through the wilderness. I sprinted toward it, and stumbled as headlights blasted into view. A vehicle screeched to a stop, inches from me. A woman jumped out, shouting, "Oh my God, are you okay?" I collapsed to my knees, shaking violently. There's something in the woods," I stammered. She pulled out her phone. Easy, she said. "I'm calling emergency services." Before she could dial, something moved in the tree line behind us. Not Rhett. Something bigger. Something slower. Something that watched. I grabbed her arm. "Drive," I begged. "Please drive. Now." She didn't ask questions. She threw open her door, shoved me inside, and floored it down the highway. I didn't breathe until the forest thinned. When I finally told the RCMP everything, they searched the area. They found the crashed truck. They found Rhett's footprints. But they didn't find Rhett. They didn't find the clearing. They didn't find any glowing light. Nothing beneath the soil. They said the rain probably washed away tracks. That maybe Rhett wandered off injured and got lost. But I know what I saw. And maybe the land didn't want to be found again. People go missing on Ridgemont Highway every damn year. Some are never found. Some are found in pieces. Some, not at all. Nobody believes my story. But they didn't see the way the ground moved. They didn't hear the way the forest exhaled like a living thing. They didn't see a man willingly give himself to something beneath the soil. I did. And every time I close my eyes, I still see Rhett, kneeling in that clearing, whispering. Everyone sees eventually. It's been years since that night. But last week, Something happened. My mom called me into the living room. The news was on. A reporter stood in front of a taped-off section of Ridgemont Highway. Behind him, emergency vehicles lit the trees with blue and red flashes. A body had been found. Torn apart, unrecognizable. And beside the reporter, partially pixelated, was an evidence photo. A root, thick, twisted, covered in something that looked like blood. My throat went dry, because I recognized it. I'd seen one just like it in that clearing. I don't think Ridgemont Highway attracts killers. I don't think the disappearances happen because of poverty or hitchhiking. I think the land itself is hungry. I think it chooses. And I think it's waking up again. If you ever find yourself up north, if you ever see a soft blue glow coming from the tree line, don't go toward it. Not everyone gets away. Not everyone was meant to. I always thought loneliness was just another phase of adulthood, like paying taxes, losing hair, or pretending you enjoy your coworkers' potluck chili. But the year everything happened, loneliness wasn't a phase for me. It became a living thing, a shape, a shadow, something that followed me home like static on my clothes. My name is Rylan Harrow, and before everything went sideways, I was a 39-year-old auto parts store clerk in Redwater, Alberta. A quiet oil town northeast of Edmonton where the cold hits you like a slap and the nights stay empty long enough that your thoughts echo. My marriage had ended 2 years earlier. She left quietly, peacefully, the way people leave hotel rooms they never really unpacked in. After the divorce, friends drifted, routines changed, and I fell into that hollow, where your phone never dings, unless Amazon is telling you your wiper blades shipped. So when I matched with a woman on a dating site, plenty of stories, not plenty of fish. I felt life crack open just a bit. Her name on the profile was Evelyn Lane. The pictures? Realistic. No filters. Brown jacket, toque. Standing near a lake, maybe Sylvan. Hard to tell. Her messages were warm, funny, a little flirty. She typed, "You seem normal." That's rare on here. Coffee sometime? Normal. I laughed at that. No one had called me normal in a long time. My co-workers, Troy, Layla, and Big Loud Stanley were excited for me. They teased me like I'd won the lottery. "Bro finally got a date," Troy shouted from the back room. "Rylan's back in the game. You better not screw this up," Layla added, smirking. "Seriously, look at you. Buy decent shoes or something." I told them I'd meet Evelyn that Friday. I told myself I deserved to be excited. I didn't know then that excitement was the first step toward missing signs. I didn't know it would get me nearly killed. I didn't know it would uncover a nightmare living less than 40 kilometers from me. We agreed to meet at a place called Brewhaven, a quiet little cafe near the riverfront in a neighboring town called North Willow. I'd never been there, but the Google photos made it look warm, those indie cafes with exposed brick, plants, and chalkboard menus that make you feel like life is fixable. But a few hours before we were supposed to meet, she messaged, "Actually, I don't love crowded places. Can you meet me at my studio instead? It's a quick drive. I'll send directions." I should have said no. Everyone tells you not to go somewhere private on the first date. But loneliness makes you rewrite the rules. Her studio address was a small, detached building behind a row of older duplexes on the outskirts of North Willow. Google Street View showed nothing weird. A garage converted into a workspace, maybe. Troy saw me gathering my jacket before shift ended. "You vibing too hard, man," he joked. "Play it cool. Don't go to some rando's basement." "It's a studio." I laughed. He frowned. "Still, don't do dumb white guy in a horror movie times T." Layla chimed in from the register. "Send us your location, dumbass." I promised I would. Sometimes promises are the only things you leave behind when people go looking for you. I arrived just after sunset. The sky was that deep Alberta winter blue where daylight gives up fast and the cold starts chewing your face. The studio looked ordinary. A single window, a motion light above the door. Snow shoveled recently. I knocked. "Evelyn," I called. The door opened. But not the way I expected. It opened too quickly, almost like someone was waiting at the hinge. A woman stepped out tall, black beanie, gray hoodie. Not the one in the photos. Hey, she said. You're Rylan, right? I'm Eva. Everyone calls me that. Her smile seemed rehearsed. You look different from your pictures, I said gently. They were old, she answered, shrugging. Life got busy. I tried to hide my disappointment. Not because she wasn't pretty. Just because something didn't line up. Inside, the studio was dimly lit. Smelled like paint thinner and cold metal. You do art? I asked. She turned on one small hanging lamp. Yeah, sort of. Mixed media stuff. But I didn't see brushes. I didn't see canvases. I did see a long, black tarp covering most of the floor. My stomach tightened. That for painting? I asked. Eva nodded too quickly. Yeah, texture projects. Watch your step. Her voice was flat, dry. Like she wasn't used to talking to people. My phone buzzed in my pocket, Troy texting. Yo, send that location, punk. I started to reach for my phone. Eva noticed. Her eyes changed. Not wider. Narrower. Focused. Like she'd been waiting for that moment. Hey, she said quietly. No phones inside. House rule. Why? Because. Her tone grew sharp. I said so. I laughed awkwardly. I just need to tell my friends. No, she said. Put it away. Her hand brushed her pocket. I heard something metallic jingle. My instincts screamed. Something was wrong. Before I could take a step back, she moved behind me too fast and the door clicked as she locked it. That's when the fear hit fully. Not a jump. Not a spike. A slow wave, crawling up my spine like freezing water. Can we just talk? I asked, trying to keep calm. She stepped closer. Talking is why you're here. Her right hand pulled something from her hoodie pocket. A small device, gray, cylindrical. A stun baton. Electric arcs sputtered at the tip. My mouth dried instantly. Hey, Eva, listen. I started backing away, palms up. No one calls me that, she said coldly. You can call me Karen. Okay, Karen, please. Don't beg. It's pathetic. She swung. The stun baton grazed my arm. White-hot pain burst through my shoulder. My knees buckled, but adrenaline forced me upright. I stumbled toward the tarp. She lunged again. I grabbed the nearest object, an empty paint can, and hurled it at her. It cracked against her forearm and she snarled, dropping the baton. She hissed. I kicked the baton across the room and ran for the door. But she was faster. She grabbed my jacket, yanked me back, slammed me against the wall so hard the breath left my chest. Her face was inches from mine. You men make this too easy, she whispered. Every damn time. I tried to shout, but she covered my mouth with her glove. Don't bother. The insulation's thick. Learned that the hard way with someone else. Someone else? My blood turned to ice. Fight or flight wasn't a concept anymore. It was pure survival. She fumbled for something behind her, maybe a knife. I twisted violently and slammed my forehead into her chin. She let out a grunt and loosened her grip. I sprinted across the room and dove for the stun baton. She tackled me from behind, her weight crushing me into the tarp. Her hands clawed at my neck. I rolled, elbowed her ribs, scrambled to my feet. The baton sparked in my hand. Back off, I shouted. She laughed, actually laughed. Do it then. Let's see if you've got a spine. She lunged. I jammed the baton into her shoulder. The crackling scream she let out echoed off the concrete walls. She collapsed, twitching, but still conscious. I didn't wait. I grabbed the nearest heavy object, a metal clamp, and slammed it into the window until the glass shattered. Snowy air blasted my face. I climbed through, cutting my hands on the broken edges, and dropped into the snow outside. I ran. I didn't look back. Not once. The RCMP found her 5 hours later. She tried to flee the province, but snowstorms had shut the highways. They arrested her near the outskirts of a tiny town called Pine Willow Ridge, after she abandoned her truck in a ditch. Her real name wasn't Karen. It was Ariel Vanek, 32 years old. No criminal record. No job. But her garage? It wasn't a studio. It was a crime scene. They found a plastic-lined pit beneath the tarp, burnt fragments of clothing, a notebook filled with detailed fantasies of kidnappings, Fake profiles she'd created over the last 2 years. Chat logs with at least 9 mente. A full scenario plan with my name on it. The scariest part? There were blood traces that didn't match me. Or her name still unaccounted for. The RCMP told me I survived because I fought early. Most victims freeze, comply, talk. And she liked that. She liked the control. The court psychiatrist said she wasn't trying to be a serial killer. She wanted to be a storyteller to experience the story from both ends, as she phrased it, to live it, to write it. I didn't testify in person. I couldn't. Even now, years later, I still wake up in the middle of the night thinking I see her standing at the end of my bed wearing that beanie, gripping that stun baton, whispering, "You men make this too easy." But therapy helped. Friends helped. And the biggest lesson? Loneliness isn't the worst thing in the world. Trusting the wrong person is.